So this is a story that I think is so important, and it's been flying under the radar, I think, for a lot of politicians, pollsters. I remember having a conversation a few weeks ago with a pollster who couldn't figure out why there was a growing divide between young men and young women politically, with young men breaking far more to the right than young women. Well, according to a recent analysis by The Economist, data shows that in many rich countries, younger women are becoming sharply more liberal while their male peers are not. The divide is evident here in the United States as well. The latest Wall Street Journal poll finds that President Biden draws only 37% in men in the 7 swing states on the ballot. That includes only him and Trump. Those are far weaker showings than the 46% of men that Biden won in the 2020 election. In 2020, Biden won 55% of women and 46% of men, a gap of 9 points in the Journal's national and swing state polls. That gap's now at 13 points, due mostly to his deteriorating support among men. And Willie, this is something that I remember in 2017, 2018, talking to a friend who was the head of school at one of the most elite prep schools in America, and saying, from just what I was picking up from these campuses, these elite campuses, whether it was prep schools or colleges, I said to him, listen, you have to understand something. If you keep pushing young boys, young men into the corner, telling them, that they're toxic or are just suggesting they're guilty because they're men, you shove them into that corner, I promise you, they're going to come out Trumpers. This is whatever you think you're doing, whatever wrongs you think you were righting, you're actually doing just the opposite. And you are going to strengthen Donald Trump, and you're going to strengthen people like Donald Trump with these actions. Well, he smiled, we remained friends, and of course he and everybody else did absolutely nothing. And it's not just in elite prep schools, Willie, and elite colleges, even though that's happening there. Not as much, I think, as it was a few years ago. But you've seen it just like so many other New York City parents have.
Yeah, I mean, if you tell young boys and young men that they're toxic, that they're in some way inherently bad, at some point they begin to resent that and look for a place that's not telling them that. In fact, is saying the opposite. So it's such a complicated and fascinating issue, and I'm so glad we're doing this segment, because there is something about recapturing some old version of masculinity that Donald Trump and podcasters and a certain culture in this country that is really putting its finger on and trying to convince men and young men that they can help bring us back to that place. But then there's also the other side of it, which is pushing men away in many ways. And there are so many inequities and inequalities in terms of gender that need to be righted over centuries and centuries. And we're on our way to doing better with that, I hope. But I don't think you have to do I think you can do two things at once, as we say on this show. You can lift people up without pushing the other gender down. Let's continue this conversation with the deputy editor of The Economist, lead author of the piece we just mentioned, Robert Guest. Robert, good morning. It's great to have you on. In the piece for The Economist titled Why Young Men and Women Are Drifting Apart, you write about why we're seeing such divergent priorities between the sexes. And you write, in part, the most likely causes of this growing division are education. Young men are getting less of it than young women. Experience. Advanced countries have become less sexist, and men and women experience this differently. And echo chambers. Social media aggravate polarization. Also, in democracies, many politicians on the right are deftly stoking young male grievances, while many on the left barely acknowledge young men have real problems. But they do, starting with education. Although the men at the top are doing fine, many of the rest are struggling. In rich countries, 28% of boys and only 18% of girls fail to reach the minimum level of reading proficiency, and women have overtaken men at university. So, Robert, where do you start looking at this trend? What's the source of this? Because, as you say, it was equal for many, many years and seems to have gone in a different direction in recent.
So what you start by is remembering this is not just an American problem. This is something we're seeing all around rich and developed countries, places as different as sort of Poland, America, France, South Korea, China. And then you've got to look at what's changed. And we were very, very careful not to exaggerate this. We got our data team to look very carefully at the highest quality polling and how it had changed over time. And we found that the gap, if you put yourself on a scale of sort of 1 to 10 from sort of very liberal to very conservative, 20 years ago there was basically no difference between young men and women. That's sort of 18 to 29-year-olds across the 20 rich countries that we looked at. But now the gap is about 0.75, and that may not sound very much, but most people cluster around the middle. It's actually a very big gap. It's about twice as large as the gap between people who went to college and people who didn't go to college. And people who go to college tend to skew much more liberal. And in America, the gap's double the average. It's 1.4. That's very big. And that suggests that people are hearing a different account of reality. And it's, we think it's partly because, men are more likely to be doing badly in education. And that affects them in the job market, and that affects them in the dating market. And some of them, a minority, but a significant minority, are blaming women for the fact that they're not doing very well in the job market and the dating market. And then when you add social media to that, everyone's in these echo chambers. So, if you're female and you look at a Me Too story, you're going to be served up more Me Too stories. If you're a guy and you look at a story about someone being falsely accused of rape, you're going to be served up more stories like that. And this gives you a greatly exaggerated view of the risks that you personally face. And that's very polarizing.
So, Robert, I wrote quite a lot about this in a book I wrote last year, The Power Code. And we looked at this thing called loss aversion theory, the idea that young men in particular, felt that they were losing out and that caused resentment. They didn't see the pie growing. There was a sort of theory that, if women were getting on better, that must mean they were getting on worse. I mean, I'm not entirely sure women are getting on that much better, because there's just been a report out this week showing the number of women in C-suites in America, anyway, has declined for the first time in a while. So perhaps everybody's losing out. But one of the political theories that I'd heard posited was that because women have been at the kind of losing end of power structures until fairly recently, when they start getting into power, they retain more empathy for immigrants or for people lower down the scale. They tend to have more support, understandably, for sort of DEI initiatives and stuff. And that tends to actually push women more to the left. So it's not just that men are going more to the right, it's that women are becoming more liberal. And I wanted you to talk about that side of the equation. What's happening there?
This is about how people express their sort of political allegiance. And I think, generally speaking, younger generations are more liberal than older generations. But there's also a tendency to take for granted all the progress that's happened in the past, and understandably to focus on the things that still need correcting. So, it's not an issue anymore whether, women are allowed to enter the legal profession, which was a, really big deal back in the 1960s. Things like sort of marital rape have been criminalized everywhere, certainly in rich countries. So people tend to take for granted the progress of the past, which has been considerable, and focus on the problems that they're facing in the future. And for women, that means you're focusing on things like the imbalance in the C-suite, which is still very large. But when young men who haven't been to college hear about that, and they're told, well, you shouldn't be complaining because, the C-suites are almost entirely male. They're like, yeah, but that's other men. That's not us. We're the guys who are struggling to make a living. And so people do tend to focus on their own issues, understandably. And like I said, with social media, they tend to get an exaggerated view of how bad things are for them and how likely really bad things are to happen to them. So, some of the interviews we did. Yeah.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.